Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the 2021 Washington, D.C. Section of ITE Loudoun County Virtual Technical Meeting. My name is Ahmed Amir, a Senior Transportation Engineer with VHB, and I'll be gladly moderating this event. This is the second virtual, and I think the third or fourth of Loudoun County Technical Meetings with the WDC section community. And we are looking forward for more to come in person, hopefully, the following years. In today's meeting, we will be hearing from two of the Loudoun County Department of Transportation and Capital Infrastructure DTCI key members about two of the very interesting programs that the county leads and works on. Without further ado, allow me to introduce our first presenter today, Dr. Enrique Gonzalez, who will be speaking about Loudoun County Intersection Improvement Program prioritization and implementation. Enrique has a PhD in civil engineering from the University of South Florida, with an emphasis on traffic operation and safety research, and also a master's and a bachelor's in science in civil engineering from the University of Puerto Rico at Maygo Wells. Dr. Gonzalez is currently a senior traffic engineer for the Loudoun County DTCI and has over 15 years of work experience. Before joining DTCI, Dr. Gonzalez taught as an assistant professor of the Civil Engineering and Surveying Department at the University of Puerto Rico at Maygo Wells, where he had the opportunity of serving as a co-advisor of the university's ITE student chapter and co-manager of the university's Eisenhower Transportation Fellowship Program. In addition, Dr. Gonzalez is a member of the TRB Standing Committee on Workforce Development and Organizational Excellence, and a friend of the Standing Committee on Safety Performance Analysis, among others. So welcome, Enrique.
Well, first of all, thank you, Ahmed, and thanks to the Washington, D.C. IT section for the opportunity, and good afternoon, everyone. Today, I'm going to be presenting an overview of the Loudoun County Intersection Improvement Program prioritization and implementation. Okay, we are moving. Good. Loudoun County has seen a significant increase in terms of residential and commercial growth. Also, we have been adding new roadways and planning for future roadway segments in order to improve the connectivity and mobility of their residents. As a result, we have seen a significant increase in traffic volumes, and also we have seen the creation of new traffic patterns, resulting in an increase in safety deficiencies, and operational issues, especially at intersections. Aiming to enhance the responsiveness, deploying a data-driven approach, increasing efficiency, and secure resources to implement intersection improvements, Loudoun County established a roadway intersection improvement program. In 2017, we present a report titled Roadway Intersection Improvement Program. The report includes an inventory of signalized and unsignalized intersections. As part of this report, unsignalized intersections were evaluated and ranked. Also, at the time that we present the item to the board directs staff to include the analysis and evaluation of signalized intersections. Now, when we talk about the inventory, we are talking about the data collection included the street names, route numbers, traffic control types, average daily traffic, and crashes. Crash information was collected for 5 years and within 300 feet of each of the intersections. Based on Beta GIS traffic volumes and crash history, intersections were ranked on a scale from 1 through 5. A rank 5 represent the most critical intersection or have a high priority and will require the additional investigation study. And a rank 1 indicates the lowest rank of intersections or priority for intersection. The 2017 report identified a total of 724 intersections, from which 180 were signalized intersections and 544 were unsignalized intersections. A total of 29 intersections were identified as a high priority and in need of additional studies. In this table, we see a column that said rank 5 intersections being addressed. These intersections, or this information, refers to intersections for which a current capital improvement program is planned, intersection improvements are proffered, or advanced studies of the intersection is underway. Okay. This slide shows a map for the 20 intersections that were selected and moved forward for additional study and evaluation. During this task, DTCI have the opportunity to present the results to the board in multiple occasions. All of the 20 intersections undergo the preliminary signal warrant analysis and SGR evaluation. From the results of the analysis, we identified 15 intersections that met the warrant criteria. 4 of those 15 intersections were addressed or were forward to be addressed by a proffer. 5 intersections do not meet the warrant criteria. Now, we have 20 intersections, or we have 16 intersections. How we decide which one we want to move forward, which one have the most priority and requires the county to move on and put as the one that we need to initiate the improvements. So we decide to develop an intersection prioritization criteria. The intersection were evaluated using additional criteria to determine the prioritization or order for the design and construction of the approved safety improvements. The additional criteria used in the evaluation include safety, pedestrian and bicycle impacts, roadway impacts, and traffic operations. Talking about the prioritization, on 2020, at the ITE annual meeting, I had the opportunity to present with Randy Boyce a poster presentation showcasing in details the prioritization criteria or prioritization methodology. We went over all the different criteria and the values that we provide to all of the different factors that I'm going to show in the next couple of slides. But for reference, if you want to know more information about that, I will refer to the poster presentation that we did last year. Okay, when we talk about safety, what we are talking about? We're talking about the impact of the correctable crashes, the reduction in weighted conflict points, the average crash severity, number of bicycle and pedestrian crashes. When we talk about signal warrants, what we are talking about? Well, we were looking into the criteria for warrants 1, 2, and 3. Are they met? Are they not met? And also, we were looking to see that if the intersection meets the VDOT and the roadway design manual standards. When we talk about the roadway impacts, we were talking about the access management. Are the improvements that we're proposing at that intersection, will they create new access points? Will reduce the number of access points at those intersections? What will be the impact of the right-of-way? Do we have to buy new land, or within the right-of-way that it's available, can we do the improvements at that intersection? In addition to that, we have the pedestrian and bicycle impact. What is the pedestrian volumes? Do we have that information? Let's see if we have a lot of pedestrians or not at those intersections. Also, what are the existing bicycle and pedestrian accommodations? In terms of the traffic impact, we were looking at the peak hour volumes, the reduction in the average intersection delays, and the existing level of service. After completing that, we proceed to determine or rank the intersections and move the intersections for future design and construction. Currently, we have 12 intersections in our CIP, in the Capital Improvement Program. This information that I'm showing over here is available in our CIP in the pages 10, 119, and 10-120. But pretty much what I'm showing over here is that in 2021, we include 2 intersections from the list that we were having. On 2022 fiscal year, we include 7 new intersections, and we have 3 intersections for 2023. And that's the information that if we look at the bottom of the table, we have allocated over $22 million for addressing those 12 intersections. In addition to that, the CIP includes 78 millions, as part of that 22 millions in the first 6 years for improvement of those intersections, and another 57 millions beyond those 6 years for future intersections. Also, we have one intersection that is the Route 7 and Clayton Hall Road that we're working with VDOT for addressing the safety implementations that we identify for the improvement at that intersection. And pretty much it's through the VDOT systematic unsignalized intersection project, in which the implementation of the safety treatment will be signage and pavement marking. Those improvements will be completed by VDOT. Now, on 2020, we went back to the board and then we present the expansion report. We went back with the updated version of the 2017 report. And in this one, we look at new intersections, and also we include the analysis for signalized intersections and roundabouts intersections. What changed from 2017 to 2020? Well, we had more intersections that were built in the county, but also we had included new CTP roadways that were included into the proof of the 2019 CTP plan. In addition to that, we identify non-CTP roadways. Pretty much we are looking at roadways that connect to existing CTP roadways or provide public access to schools or other public facilities. And we identify those segments and add those segments as part of the CTP roadways for investigation. And of course, with the new developments, residentials, commercials, we have new intersections that were added and new roadway segments that were built in the network. This is a summary table for the 2020 report. Now we have over 892 intersections identified, from which 16 are roundabouts, 203 are signalized, and 673 are unsignalized intersections. From these 892 intersections, 7 intersections were identified as rank 5 or in need of additional investigation. To compare from the 2017 and 2020, we have this graphic, and we can see that there's 23 more signalized intersections. Of course, from 0 to 16 roundabouts intersection, we never include those in the 2017 report, and we have over 129 unsignalized intersections. In terms of rank 5 intersections, from the 2017 to the 2020, we have from 43 to 45, a +2 in unsignalized intersections. Of course, roundabouts and unsignalized intersections were not analyzed on the 2017 report, so that's why you have from 0 to 20 and from 0 to 2. Okay, now what we're gonna do with those 7 intersections that were identified as a rank 5. The unsignalized intersections and signalized intersections, from those, we identified that there's one unsignalized intersection that it's been proffered, or they already have done a signal warrant analysis and it's warranted for a signal. So for the other intersections, we will start a signal justification report, a signal warrant analysis, and study all of the intersections. And previously, we were talking about the prioritization criteria that we have for unsignalized intersection. The same prioritization criteria will be used for unsignalized intersections, but for signalized intersections, as part of the 2020 report and the new signalized, for the new rank 5 intersections, we have to develop a new prioritization criteria. something that will match more with what are those signalized intersections and what are the characteristics of the signalized intersections. Also, from the 2020 report, we identified that in some cases, it's better to do a corridor study when we have multiple rank 5 intersections or close to rank 5 intersections, those intersections that are high priority, how the proximity of other intersections will impact the safety of those intersections and how we can address the safety in the entire corridor. And we have identified the Sterling Boulevard corridor and the Russell Branch Parkway corridor as part of those first corridor studies in where we are going to be analyzing all the intersections as part of the intersection improvement program. Now, disregarding in the future if it's a signalized, a roundabout, or unsignalized intersection, all of them will undertake an evaluation that will result in the recommendation of appropriate safety countermeasures. It is expected that at the end of each of study, we will provide a summary of the recommendations, get the approvals of VDOT, and then move on in the CIP and put those new intersections and new projects in the CIP for future analysis and evaluation, well, for the design and construction of the improvements that will be recommended. Now, in terms of the program and what's being done on 2017 and 2020, for the next update of the intersection improvement database, we want to improve in the process that we are using for the ranking methodology. So as part of that, we would like to have in the next version, or we would like to see in the next version, it's to include other analysis, for example, at crash rates, the average crash severity, and the pedestrian and bicycle safety evaluation. I know that this is not part of my project, that will be part of the next presentation, but as part of the next presentation that you guys will see soon, we have now more information about where are the existing and missing pedestrian and bicycle facilities in the county. So now we have a new layer that can be used for the analysis of the intersections in future reports. So with that, thank you, and I'm available for questions.
Thank you very much, Enrique, for the interesting presentation and the interesting, details of the program. Quite informative, and we have some questions. I see one question in the chat here from Asma Ali. So Asma, feel free to unmute yourself and ask your question if you want.
Thank you, Ahmed. This is Asma here from T2 Design. My question is that you identified 16 intersections for evaluation, 16 roundabout for evaluation. So what is the reason for evaluating roundabout when roundabout themselves, that design is an alternative for a signalized and unsignalized intersection? Were there any specific issues identified, safety or traffic operation related?
That's why I want to see in the next version or the next report the crash rates and the injury severity, because pretty much for the ranking methodology that we are using right now, we are just looking at volumes and number of crashes. So because of the high number of crashes, disregarding that they probably are PDO, that's why they were identified. But this is something that we are in the process of, addressing that. So in the next version or the next update report, then we can address that part. But yes, it's pretty much because of the methodology that for identifying the rank 5.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Very good. Any other questions? Feel free to raise hand, unmute, or type in the chat. Okay, in the meantime, I have one question to Enrique about the presentation here, and it's mainly about is there a reason why in the 2017 program only the unsignalized intersections were considered at the time. So I mean, I know again in the 2020 you start including the signalized and the roundabouts. So initially the objectives was did not include those, only the unsignalized one. Is there a reason why that was the case? Just like the objective was directed to the unsignalized only, and then the other question, I think you answered that partially in your answer to Asma's question, is whether the evaluation criteria for the rankings 1 through 5 varies by the intersection type, whether it's signalized or roundabout or unsignalized, when all types are included now in the assessment. So
Okay. Let me start with the ranking criteria. For the ranking criteria, disregarding that it's signalized, unsignalized, or roundabout, all of them are they were based on the same criteria. Again, number of crashes and volumes for each of the intersections. Now, in terms of the 2017 report, at that time, the task or the scope of work for that project was to develop the inventory of the intersections, but only the evaluation of unsignalized intersections. Because pretty much, if you have a signal, you are assuming that they will have a better operation or will be safer for any of the residents of the county to drive through that intersection, disregarding that there's other things. But usually you will assume that because it's under a traffic control device, the people will behave and then obey the signal. So that's pretty much why we did the analysis for the unsignalized intersection in 2017. But now, and because from that point on, we have received multiple complaints or no complaints, requests for analysis of signalized intersections. We have been working by BMI items for the analysis of signalized intersections within the county, individual intersections here and there. So instead of going by what it's proposed from a BMI item, then we decide to have a proactive approach of, okay, let's screen all the signalized intersections and identify the ones that are more critical or have a high number of crashes, or they need to be looked into it. So we can allocate better the resources that we have and also the budget that we have.
Thank you so much. Laura, our second presenter, she was following up on the first question about the roundabouts in the chat here. I can read it out loud for people who are not seeing the chat or joining by audio only. She was saying that the high crash rates at roundabout intersections can indicate the need for improved design, i.e. need to increase approach angle or high visibility needed at pedestrian crosswalks. So that's to follow up on the question about the roundabout improvements and the kind of concerns being addressed at those. Yeah. Perfect. Thank you, Laura, as well. Any other questions or comments from any of the attendees? Feel free to unmute yourself.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello. This is Rashid from WDCSITE. I have a question regarding the roundabout. Did you have any recommendation to change or convert traffic signal into a roundabout? Did you ever consider that?
From a traffic signal to a roundabout?
Yeah.
Well, now with the requirements for the water analysis and the SJRs, all unsignalized and unsignalized intersections will have to be considered. Now, for the signalized intersections, we are in the process of doing the first couple of intersections, and we are in the process of doing the analysis of those signalized intersections. So at this time, I cannot say that, yes, that's something that we are going to be proposing, because we also have to take into account the location of the intersection and the impacts on the right-of-way. So I don't know exactly if that's going to be one of the recommendations, but definitely this is something that needs to be looked into it as part of the evaluation of the signalized intersections.
Because I've seen a lot of improvements when you convert an unsignalized into a roundabout. the queuing is reduced, and it's actually very safe.
Yes.
So that's
Definitely, that's true.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all.
Thank you.
Very good. Any other questions? Okay, hearing none, I think thank you so much, Enrique, for the interesting topic, and the discussion with our attendees as well. Okay, our second presenter today is Laura Ghosh, who will speak about the Loudoun County Sidewalk Trail and Trails Program Prioritization Implementation. Hi, Laura. With her passion for improving the safety, accessibility, and mobility of multimodal transportation in her corner of the world, Laura excels in her role as a bicycle and pedestrian coordinator in the traffic engineering team at Loudoun County DTCI. Whether directing county-wide prioritization studies, managing traffic signal warrant, and innovative intersection improvement analyses, developing pilot program for shared use mobility devices, or reviewing corridor studies and conceptual designs, Laura is an advocate of livable communities and safe streets. Laura's 9 years of transportation engineering experience range from traffic engineering with Castle Glen Consultants and Kimley Horn to risk management and congestion modeling research at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign to transportation engineering and project management with Loudoun County. Her diverse work experience has honed efficient analytical skills and an aptitude for exercising sound judgment in the development of practical engineering solutions. Her education includes a Bachelor of Engineering from Clareton University in Ottawa, Canada, and an MS in Civil Engineering from UIUC. So thank you again, Laura, for joining us, and welcome. And then feel free to share your screen and start your presentation.
Thank you, Ahmed. And I apologize if you hear any yelling in the background. That's my toddler. We're home on quarantine due to a daycare COVID scare. So yay. Okay, so hi everyone. I'm Laura Ghosh, a senior transportation engineer at Loudoun County. And this presentation will focus on providing an update to the Loudoun County Sidewalk and Trail Program and build off the presentation given last October. For those of you who missed my presentation last October or who need a refresher, the Sidewalk and Trail Program is funded as a project in Loudoun County's Capital Improvement Program. It is intended to provide funding for the planning, design, right-of-way acquisition, and/or construction of approximately 3 to 5 miles of sidewalk, shared use path, and regional trail per year. Funding for this program is anticipated to ramp up over the next several years, with design starting now, the first land acquisition activities starting next summer, and then construction starting in FY 2024. Previous efforts for this program started in 2019 with the identification of a master list of missing links countywide in which we compared existing facilities to what was called for in our countywide transportation plan. We then identified prioritization criteria and sought feedback from various stakeholders for weighting the criteria. After gathering the appropriate data to reflect 17 prioritization criteria, we analyzed the missing links to develop the master priority list. Using this list, we identified and selected projects for which conceptual diagrams, project costs, and schedules were further defined. Those projects were incorporated into our capital improvement program. In 2021, we are currently developing conceptual diagrams and quantities for the next set of projects that were identified at the February 2021 Transportation and Land Use Committee meeting. We are about to kick off development of prioritization criteria for rural Loudoun sidewalk and trails links, and we are assessing the sidewalk and trail network and program equity. In 2022, if necessary, we will be applying that equity criteria adjustment factors to address disparate impacts of our current sidewalk and trail program, or the ones that our sidewalk and trail program are unable to address. Additionally, we will select the next set of projects for implementation. And today I'd like to provide you with additional insight regarding the 2021 activities. So starting with the development of the concept diagrams and quantities for projects 13 through 23, we have adopted the same considerations as the first 12 sidewalk and trail projects. Specifically, the concept designs considered visible utilities, potential stormwater issues, preliminary profiles where needed, and potential crosswalk locations. We also sought to minimize land acquisition costs as much as possible. Scoping the projects is the main challenge encountered thus far. Initial criteria for defining the projects were to reduce mobilization costs and construction duration, account for the presence of existing proffers and existing board member initiatives that included these segments, and then eliminate also network gaps. In addition, we're now trying to define projects so as to minimize the number of times we need to approach landowners to acquire another piece of land. And an example of this is the draft concept shown here, which pertains to a project that now considers all of these criteria, but initially the project only considered the segments along Benedict Drive. So north in this diagram is actually toward your right, and Benedict Drive is the vertical on the left, the vertical road on the left. And we realized that we would be approaching the same landowner in the span of about 8 years to acquire land. And so we combined the project or extended the project to include the segment along Potomac View Road. In addition to the desire to reduce the land acquisition negotiations, was also a desire to connect to the new Route 7 pedestrian crossings. So, and we had a number of those actually in these draft concept diagram development projects, and so we're now considering that. The second challenge is using the new county development review software to allow for simultaneous review of draft documents. And we have 6 groups within DTCI who are assisting with the draft development concept reviews, and we're currently in a 3-week review period. And over the last year, we've received mandatory training for Bluebeam and have received training for markup and best practices protocols for reviewing the documents. However, this is the first concept review effort using this new process that many of us have been a part of, and so it's definitely been a learning curve, at least for me setting up the projects. So fingers crossed it goes okay. The next effort I want to discuss today pertains to the development of prioritization criteria for rural Loudoun. So the 2020 Sidewalk and Trail Prioritization Study really focused on non-rural areas. And while it did evaluate missing links within villages and joint land management areas, it did not evaluate other missing links within rural policy area. And that was because based on the proximity and network criteria we were already using and had been identified by our stakeholder group, all of the rural links would rank really low or represent the criteria unfairly. The study did suggest that alternate criteria be considered to evaluate missing links in the rural policy area that would include longer non-motorized trips, as well as recreational uses compatible with rural land uses. And shout out to Danielle McCrae, who was the PM on that project from Kimley Horn. So the rural analysis will consider all sidewalks and shared use paths and regional trails within Western Loudoun as called for in our countywide transportation plan, including those within villages and joint land management areas. It will determine revised accessibility and connectivity factors such as unpaved roadway network, shown here, as well as our linear parks and trails network, shown here. And it intends to engage an expanded group of stakeholders, including representatives of our rural villages, as well as potential facility users, including equestrian, hunt, and mountain bike representatives. These stakeholders will help select and weight prioritization criteria to develop a master rural list. And finally, the study will develop equivalencies between the rural list and the current sidewalk and trail priority lists so that they can be combined into one master list. One of the challenges we are expecting is a lack of digitized data. So an example is these cue sheets, which are provided by Bicycles and Coffee in Purcellville, and they have some GIS data, but they don't have, or they have some GPS data to allow bicyclists to follow the cue sheets, but we don't have access to the GIS shapefiles, and so we probably have to convert these cue sheets into GIS shapefiles to help with the analysis. In addition, we are aware that Visit Loudoun and other organizations within Loudoun County maintain data sets that might be useful for this analysis that would have representative destinations or publicly accessible trails. So the final effort that I would like to discuss today is the equity analysis for the Sidewalk and Trail program. To provide a bit of background as to the origin of this study, in July 2020, MWCOG affirmed racial equity as a fundamental COG value. And between September 2020 and January 2021, MWCOG, that's the Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments, hosted a town hall series that focused on multiple dimensions of equity and community resiliency. And then I think that the information presented at those town halls was kind of incorporated and culminated in some direction we received at the February 2021 TLUC meeting, in which we were directed as staff to return to a future TLUC meeting with a schedule of projects that incorporated equity considerations into the future development of these projects. So basically a revised master list that would account or improve equity in Loudoun County from a sidewalk and trail standpoint. Fortunately, thanks to you and the greater bike ped industry, there had been a lot of discussion regarding equity, and we were able to use the information presented during webinars, such as TRB's Bicycle Transportation Committee meeting, in which Adonia Lugo and Sarah McCullough presented a
So I have one question about while people get their questions together about the MWCOG equity initiative here and whether it's being considered. So I know it's being considered as part how to implement that into the pedestrian sidewalks and trails program here. Is there any planning in the county to incorporate that in other areas as well, other than the pedestrian sidewalks and trails here?
So Loudoun County recently hired an equity officer. His name is Carl Rush, and he started July 8th, so he's settling into the office. We're planning on kicking off a bunch of introductory briefings for him regarding DCCI activities. We have a number of activities such as the renaming of highways in the county that also pertain to equity. Yes, there are some, but my guess is that there's going to be more.
Very good. Forward to hear about that more, I guess. Yeah. I think you're getting some applause in the chat as well about your multitasking abilities of handling your presentation while having the background distraction. So well done on that, I guess.
Yeah. Okay.
Perfect. Anyone has any other questions to our presenters?
Laura, this is Doug Kennedy with Pannoni. I did have one question about the equity. Is there any movement to go back and relook at the first 23 projects and see how they fit in with these new rankings?
So we are going to evaluate them. We're not going to re-rank them. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? I think we're open for both presentations as well. If anyone has any questions about the first presentation too. Perfect. Thank you so much again to Enrique and Laura. And I think Laura may have one announcement for the group here if people would like to stay on.
Yes. Okay. So Loudoun County, currently my team has a position open for a transportation engineer. So if you are interested in these projects and would like to work on something like that, please check out our opening. I think the minimum requirements is for 3 years of experience. So I recognize many of the names on here. Probably not for you, but if you're interested in working for the county, it's open.
Laura, this is Dustin. We also have an opening for senior transportation planner.
Thank you, Dustin.
Well, in any case, if you are interested to work with the county, go to the website and look for all the positions that we have. Here at DTCI, planning and zoning, we have multiple openings. So, or if you know someone that is looking for a job, tell them that to go into our website and look for jobs.
Yeah. Thanks for letting us put that plug in. I mean,
Our pleasure, always to share the county news and updates as well. So yeah. Definitely. And I guess if there is no more questions or comments, I think thank you again to our presenters here and our attendees. And we'll definitely be looking forward to the next Loudoun County meeting for our section here and updates on the two interesting programs that are ongoing here. Perfect. Thank you, everyone.